to Pixel. I have great pleasure in introducing Sue Johns and Sara Levy. Both of them have an MA in writing poetry from Newcastle University, the Poetry School. When Sue and Sara addressed each other's MA portfolios, they discovered striking similarities. This reading today includes work from both projects dealing with mental health and incarceration, predominantly of women, from the 19th century to the present day. Sue Johns originates from Cornwall, where she started performing as a punk poet in the 1980s. And I saw Sue Johns in London, actually, many years ago. Brilliant. She's widely published in magazines and collections including Hush, Rented, Poems on Prostitution and Dependency, and Track Record. All on sale here today after the event. Sue will read a heroic crown of sonnets on the life of Vivian Eliot, first wife of T.S. Eliot, and a series of contemporary poems about female mental health, many of which are written from personal or family experiences. Thanks, Sue.
Thank you, and big love to Graham and the Penzance Lit Fest, and to all of you lovely people for coming today. So I'm going to read from a collection that I've called Girl Crazy, starting with Heroic Crown of Sonnets, which is essentially a series of 15 sonnets, and the last line of each one becomes the first line of the following one, and the final 15th sonnet is made up of all of the first lines in order. That's the shit you do to get a master's. It's in memory of Vivian Eliot, T.S. Eliot's first wife. Now, when she's mentioned in the poetry world, it's usually in connection with her mental health and the supposed burden that she was on her husband. Rarely mentioned is the fact she was herself a writer, and also the huge influence that she had on his. This is really about double standards. Everything was always about Tom. His career always came first, and in his personal life, he was free. He was free to be eccentric. He was free to experiment with his sexuality, and everything he did, she supported. It was a loveless marriage, and it suited him that quite early on she did have an affair with Bertrand Russell. And later, when her mental health and her behaviour got too much of an irritant to him, he had her incarcerated into an asylum where she stayed until her death in 1947. The sonnets are all going to come up on the screen. They are a conversation between Vivian and a narrator, and each of them contains an extract from T.S. Eliot's poetry and latterly Vivian's. And there's also some photographs. So there are a couple of photographs just to start with. This is Vivian in 1930. This is Vivian in 1932, next to Junior Woolf and Tom, and you can see the terrible deterioration. And then on the next slide, that's Northumberland House, where she was incarcerated. And this was a really interesting find. This is a couple of portraits painted by the poet Lawrence Ferlinghetti. They were painted in 2009, but again, that one depicts Vivian on her marriage, and that one as she entered the asylum. So is your sonnet ready? Girl Crazy. You were the cure for sickness of the soul. At home, inside a dance, or on the water, made out to be the clever, awkward daughter, a roaming actress searching for a role. Protected by an overbearing mother, too delicate for motherhood yourself, You would not stay obedient on the shelf. You yearned to have a husband or a lover. But was that new-found husband's love so true? Did he transgress and marry you as pardon? Could he never forget it was not you that came with him late from the hyacinth garden? Come back from the dead and tell us all. Come from the dead, come back to tell you all. How I became the sacrificial wife. Little Levy, delicate and safe, whose husband's absence left a gaping hole. Always the woe of where to live and how. Our habits always outside of our means, throwing my nerves in patterns on a screen, a beacon to the lover I'd allow. A man whose life was just a waiting room, and in the room the women come and go. Each one of them will think his love was all, till human voices wake them and they drown. Now slowly, slowly you'll begin to know how I was pinned and wriggling on the wall. How you were pinned and wriggling on the wall. By flattery and all that money buys. Your secret always in another's eyes. He'd known the eyes already, known them all. The only one was something in the bank. Your lover paid as you would pay the price. The husband then, complicit in your vice, just turned away and rose within the ranks. As it was then, as it was ever so, the men that left you for another's arms had known the arms already, known them all, knew how to break a heart, but break it slow, how to conceal dependency with charm. A base menage a trois made you unwhole. A base menage a trois made me unwhole. Our benefactor chose to come and go, left me to reinvent a life in vitro, as others made supremacy their goal. Then every voice around was a command to hurry up, time, please, it's time, hurry up. No angels here, the devil's had his son. His money and his love were in demand. Then did my husband seek a different bed, though it suited him that I should wander free. I played my part and whispered, penitent, stay with me, speak. But even when I said, my nerves are bad tonight, yes, bad, stay with me, my chosen king proved to be impotent. Chosen kings proved to be impotent misogynists, still needing their mothers, allowing themselves to be controlled and smothered, will always seek approval and consent. I could not be, would not be good enough. Stood in the way of all he would inherit. I, the unsound, inadequate, hysteric, saw him flounder and break throughout our love. Well, now that's done, and I'm glad it's over. I claw through my defeat. I can connect nothing with nothing. I came burning, burning. Those who thought I picked his bones in whispers saw through our yearning as they would detect. I could not stir his dull roots with spring rain. You could not stir his dull roots with spring rain. You had so many skills. You would show him. You could also write the infamous FM. But even this resolve left you in pain. You could not know behind his painted face. He had resolved to waive the status quo and have a living lover too, although his actions never ended in disgrace. He searched for love in reminiscent bells. The music always ended at his side, though he had made his real self by then. of empty cisterns and exhausted wells. Thin and frail, you became so tired. Illness loomed before you yet again. Illness loomed before you yet again. He sent you to a sanatorium in France. You waited full of bromide, numb, and brought to heal. The world would have you tame. Meanwhile, your husband fought his own addictions. Convinced his absent wife was just a whore, he turned to drink, he turned to faith, and more your marriage filled with contradictions. Like a painted shadow on the dance floor. Frail body with a frail mind dancing too. Your heart invited, beat obedient into controlling hands, and yet the more you cared for him, the less he cared for you, disordering the role of nurse and patient. Disordering the role of nurse and patient. You took to ether when your father passed. The poet took to God. You were aghast and made your feelings known, impenitent, distant, more solemn than a fading star. His mother died, and yet your troubadour got through, convinced that all he did was sure, recording your behaviour like a camera. You were behaving as the wind behaves. A storm receding only when suppressed by drugs that made you fall. With you bedbound, your husband and your friends became a conclave. Alas, dry voices, quiet and meaningless, but murmured accusations went around. As murmured accusations went around, my husband's care became indifference. When I went searching for acceptance, his year at Harvard was already planned. As he would say, the mind when under ether is conscious, but conscious of nothing. Yet, behind my face, a mental emptiness discerned the making of my sympathy. Who knew hysteria could have no friend? Imagine all the advocates I'd lose, the ones who tried to nullify my history, who knew in my beginning is my end, as wife, as inspiration, and as muse. I left a painted shadow on the key. I am the painted shadow on the key. As his heart stiffens and rejoices in the lost lilac and the lost sea voices, I speak of it as if it was today. On his return, he pressed for separation, hiding in Surrey, sending squalid forms, resisting the protection of my arms. He would elect the company of men scolding, mocking, or merely chattering. As I grew weaker, fell to self-neglect. His leaving was the talk of Bloomsbury. While he was out with friends and flattering, or in his closet working on his lipstick, I lingered in the chambers of the sea. You lingered in the chambers of the sea. Your husband used the servants as his spies. Your brother hid your finances with lies and paid you like a child with pocket money. Everything you had, these men could take away. They cared not that, in truth, you were the plaintiff. The silver hid, your books went to the bailiff. Tom's writing grew more coarse, his life more gay, yet he saw priestly men and gave a sigh. He saw, slitted below and gashed with eyes, women as roots of knots and hair, abandoned. You sought him out, in vain, you had no ally. A life once in your hands, now stashed in diaries. Men signed that life away. brother, husband. Men signed that life away. Brother, husband. Where there is an end, the soundless wailing, there is the final addition, the failing, as everything they did was ill-intentioned. I knew too much. My legacy was clear. To have me certified, 2 doctors came, declared me sane. I wrote, I played, I sang, I dressed in white, but would not disappear. Tom did not want it known. The love of men. The pair of them had plotted this for years. My brother held my wealth. He'd been busy. By locking me away, he'd much to gain. I had to go to sate my husband's fears. He was my craze, but I was never crazy. He was your craze, but you were never crazy. You wandered in the night, but did no harm. The law was on your side, your doctors calm. You needed kindness, time, or showed no mercy. By those who swore that they would be unfettered. Reformers tried to help you to escape, to hide you in their homes and keep you safe. Once caught, you had your calls and letters censored. Each corridor, the stifling scent of death and suffocation of the corridor. Your abductors did not visit, did not see. You cut off from the world, feeling bereft of choice or voice. Then finding the same power, you silenced the poet, set your story free. I silenced the poet, set my story free. I'm written out. His words remain foolproof. Once, looking down from the asylum roof, I felt a caged bird's need for liberty. My husband had got his, my purpose served. Need I wake ever? Ah, let me dream on wings, flying ever, ah, fading, ah, gone. Would nothing of my guidance be preserved? Even my burial wishes were ignored. The wrong date on my stone, not when I chose. At last, beyond the glorious man's control, I bear the history, the truth that history withholds. I was his inspiration and his muse. I was his cure for sickness of the soul. You were the cure for sickness of the soul. Come from the dead, come back, and tell us all how you were pinned and wriggling on the wall. Your base menage a trois made you unborn. Your chosen king proved to be impotent. You could not stir his dull roots with spring rain. Illness looming before you yet again, disordering the role of nurse and patient. As murmured accusations went around, you were the painted shadow on the quay. Life lingered in the chambers of the sea. Men signed that life away, the brother and the husband. He was your craze, but you were never crazy. Silence the poet. Here is your story. So the remaining poems are very different. So yeah, I'm gonna do a couple of specular poems. So those are poems where the second half is a mirror image of the first. And the first one is about my rather troubled teenage years in 1970s Cornwall. And the other one well, let's just say it's from an older woman's perspective. Cupboard love. She is clever, though we don't know what to do with her. Arms folded stubbornly under the chest, just so demanding. There must be a remedy for nylon housecoats, immobilised by the weight of perms. To the sound of vegetables boiling, a group of women discuss me as if I wasn't there, as if I had no opinion. I am engraving a pan of solidified lard. As I cancel my final dates with optimism, I will carve the word no. There's a drawer full of knives. I am sharper than their answer. And it is always yes, because I said so. Their answer, it is always yes, because I said so. There's a drawer full of knives I am sharper than. I will carve the word no as I cancel my final date with optimism. I am engraving a pan, solidified lard, as if I wasn't there, as if I have no opinion. A group of women discuss me to the sound of vegetables boiling housecoats, immobilised by the weight of perms, just so, demanding there must be a remedy for nylon. Arms folded stubbornly under the chest. We don't know what to do with them. She's clever though. Crazy paving. I am the crazy lady on the crazy paving. I can do anything. Wee, I'm lifting my skirt up. What do the weeds want? The irises say aye, by the fence that's barely held up under the trees with dirty nails. Encouraged by the gardener, the roses will tell you what I have done when the ivy's lies are poisonous. When the ivy's lies are poisonous, the roses will tell you what I have done, encouraged by the gardener under the trees with dirty nails. By the fence that's barely held up, the irises say, aye, what do the weeds want? I'm lifting my skirt up, wee, on the crazy paving. I can do anything, I am the crazy lady. Dread. Morning. As sleep cannot be sovereign without hypnotics, grape or grain, I wake, pet my reality, it's still a muck, but it's mighty that gnash along the rate of heartbeats, churning gut ad nauseum. The imminent and gravest things to come must be worried about, and so I worry. Here, standing at my window, see a boy. Wave from a passing minibus, at two young fathers pushing prams. The watchdog of my world snaps. Wash, get dressed, put on your lipstick. Pausing. I hear the sound of women outside laughing so hard I think they're going to cry. Dread evening. I chronicled your coming night. Unwinding, I must arm for that. With something to avert not so much the days, the years have proved more dangerous. The past oozes in with a battery. I must mobilise something sharp, citrus in the spirit, incense on the inside, sour grapes. I must savour the moment. These memories, so much at play, I must settle them and rest. Set my compass, I'll be sleeping with it. Late, better than never. This doubter shifts, takes a stock of simple triumphs, slips, slipping past the light. Anyway, some of you might recognise where this is from a very old picture of Helstone. His canvas was still there. Lost White. 1. Where was my white to lose? my white, handled, spilled upon, graffitied white. The seedy beauty of bus shelters and toilet walls before everything was plasterboard and laminate. Snow burying the dirt and diluting the boredom. And oh, the reassurance of clean sheets, doctors' coats, a silent white at the wrist, breasts, affable ghosts, anything warm and milky. Daybreak on white paper, revealing the draft of nocturne. 2. But oh, all the colours I have used to paint my way out of my history. White, I was bold to marry in cream. Had it been a famous poet I'd wed, I had outwritten the aforesaid, tossed his white pages into the blue air, kept my face alabastrine, and wore nothing but red. So, yeah, over the years, there's been some really ridiculous theories and treatments for women's mental health. And one of the most bonkers is the wandering womb theory. That this is a bit of a mouthful, a woman's womb could wander around her body, and that's made her hysterical. And this was a theory that was held well into the 20th century. Hysterical. Now, when did all this commence? Did a black dog evolve on a glacial mass? Pleistocene girl lying prone in her cave, ennui for the Ice Age. Not with the four whos, witch hunts and wandering wombs, the patient being purged and bled, a drill to the head. It predates the exorcists, severing the frontal cortex, receiving electric shocks, talisman and amulets. Not hailed by the super, ego or id, penis every, envy, memories buried, or Freudian intellect. Blame your parents, have more sex. It didn't start with getting confined, for being impassioned, opinioned, or simply feeling anxious. Cold water on the uterus. Long before the eating disorders and the razor scars on an internet post, semicolon on a wrist. And it won't end with you, my dear, sat grinding your molars and drinking too much. A volume on mindfulness, gathering dust. I'm going to do 2 more. So that's Canterbury Cathedral. I was house sitting in Kent, and at the time I was going through a change of antidepressant meds, and it was going really fucking badly. So I went into Canterbury, and I went into the cathedral, and I spent several hours in there putting myself together. So this is called Withdrawal Canterbury Cathedral, with a little epigraph from Henry II. What a parcel of fools and dastards have I nourished in my house. I walk on mosaic virtues and sins, sobriety, luxury, temperance, greed. At last, devoid of serotonin, my anxiety arrives at Beckett's shrine. If dopamine had coursed to Norman nerves, would swords have stayed in the cloisters? Harsh words sufficed. Could talking cures have eased the strain on state and church? At the altar for the holy innocents, visitors adjure for the offspring of prevailing wars, and discreet signage prompts temporal prayer for peace. Soon I'm delivered. For centuries of cold and murderous stone, unto a creed not black-frocked but blister-capped. Will no one rid me of this turbulent priest? And I love this picture. But it should really be a black dog, but you can't have everything. I'll finish with this, and it's called religion. The only faith you need is the faith your dog would go for, if you had a dog. that if it leapt into the mud, you would not deliver tough love. Meaning, you would not fear the sound of your dog's breath. Fear it panting pop on your neck. Having recognised, your dog is not merely a dog, but mud is just mud. Let's add an aside. The sun is shining. The sky is, I don't know, fucking amethyst. For the love of Christ, if there was a Christ. Get in the mud with your dog. Look it in the eye. Enjoy the surprise. And then lie on the grass with your dog to dry. There is no God.
So I'd like to introduce you now to Sara Levy. Sara's pamphlet, Some Houses Are Built Without Walls, is published by Clayhanger Press. She has recorded poems from this book for soundposts at the Wellcome-funded Staffordshire Archives and Heritage exhibition, A Case for the Ordinary, which is touring Staffordshire. This collection addresses issues of mental health in a bygone era, giving voice to those silenced by incarceration in asylums. Many were written as a result of research conducted within the archives of the Staffordshire Records Office, focusing on 19th century asylum admission books, correspondence and photographs. Sara combines life as a drama teacher with her role as copy editor for the Alchemy Spoon, the magazine for poetry without prejudice. Please welcome Sara.
So my book, Some Houses Are Built Without Walls, which was a line that I took out of a fairy tale, I think, that I read somewhere. It was basically born out of my interest in women's mental health and changing attitudes to the treatment and containment of women. The Victorian asylum seemed like a very rich source of case studies, ideas and material. Many of the women I encountered in the archive from their case notes came across not as mad. They came across as exhausted by work, in and out of the home, by constant pregnancies, by year-on-year childbirth, sometimes menopausal, often dealing with domestic abuse. They were underfed, they were in poor physical health, they were tired. Lunatic was very much a broad term to describe anyone who wasn't quite conforming to societal expectations. So before beginning my poems, I always like to say that I appreciate some of the words that come up as I read. Lunatic, mental asylum, madness, have no place in our modern day understanding of mental health. They appear in the archives and they appear in my poems because they were of their time. The first poem, whilst not in my book, was very much a catalyst for the project. Agnes Richter was a seamstress in mid-1800s Germany. She was committed to a psychiatric hospital by her family. Frustrated, silenced by her incarceration, she used any scrap thread that she could find to painstakingly embroider her hospital-issued jacket. And on it, she wrote the story of her life and her daily thoughts. Agnes stitched in tiny, almost illegible characters of what we know as High German script. Only fragments of it have so far been deciphered. So the poem I'm about to read is made up of just her words. Jacket. 1894. I am in Hubbardsburg Asylum, ground floor. I am 583. The doctors of this disaster, this institution, wish to read my jacket. I am not big. I will not go. No one brings back my money. My money is no money. Inform me, Herr Doctor, the doctors are crooked. Inform me, no one in Hubbardsburg is my sister, my brother, is happiness, is mine. Inform me, Herr Doctor, how must I find Schönnitz, my brother, my sister, how? My white stockings are searched. I carry my jacket, my freedom. July 11th. No cherries, Herr Doctor. I am his. I plunge into my jacket, shoot headlong into my white, crooked happiness, my asylum. 21 years I am in Hubbardsburg Asylum. The doctors of this institution wish me to plunge headlong into disaster. On the screen is a photograph of a letter written by a woman to her husband from the same psychiatric hospital that Agnes was confined in. The reason we're reading it today is because it was never posted. The hospital staff took it and filed it away, and it got lost in their archive. Amidst all that desperate scrawl, she only wrote 2 words, over and over again. Sweetheart, come. From my book, for my book, I researched in the unexplored and largely uncatalogued archive of 3 Victorian asylums in Staffordshire. I found many women and men with stories that needed to be told. In the poems, we hear the voices of patients from their medical records, copied from correspondence with friends, family. And upon admission, every patient was given a health check and a brief interview with a doctor. The doctor would encourage them to explain why they thought they were there. This poem is called Reasons for Admission. Because 16 children. Because painful hair. Because voices in the walls. Because found her husband hanged. Because vagina is a devil to be fed. Because startled at the fair. Because ruined hopelessly. Because lost at heaven's gates. Because gunpowder beneath the bed. Because poison in the porridge. Because death of a child. Because angels come to whip him every night. Every night. I am cutting holes in water. Am I already dead? I am Beelzebub's daughter. Am I tomorrow to be wed? I am drowning here forever. Am I a lunar lost? I am searching for my treasure. Am I the Holy Ghost? I am wisps of smoke on water. Am I dressed in clothes on fire? I am a lamb to slaughter. Am I dancing on the spire? I am here, but know not where this is. I am here, but I am lost. Many of the women I encountered in my research, like Agnes Richter, were seamstresses or dressmakers before their incarceration. So the theme of sewing or trying to stitch things back together very much runs as a continuous thread through the book. This poem, to be outdone by Sue, is also a specular. My eye. Quiet at my embroidery, I promise you, I am at my most dangerous. Mother, I am thinking. When I hold the metal up to the light, the better to thread the yarn, peer through the eye of that needle and fix you in my gaze through the small aperture. I am looking directly into your soul. Through the small aperture and fix you in my gaze, peer through the eye of that needle, the better to thread the yarn. When I hold the metal up to the light, mother, I am thinking. I promise you, I am at my most dangerous. Quiet at my embroidery. Sew the button on. The definition from the Brewer's Phrase and Fable of 1894 says that sew the button on means to jot something down at once when you wish to remember it, lest it be lost or forgotten. Frayed at the edges, thoughts unravelling, coming apart at the seams. Lose the thread, embroider the truth, patch the holes, hanging on by a thread, unpick the truth, button your lip. I am undone, hemmed in, stitched up. Cross my heart and hope to die. Stick a needle in my eye. Visiting day. The shame of it. Briskly offloaded from the train at a place they call Lunatics Junction to a tram car that edges steep up the incline, dragging us gaggle of visitors, nervously clutching our gifts, homemade pies, knitted socks, sketches of little box houses, 4 windows, smoke chimney, from children who ask, when will Daddy come home? No one makes small talk. Fingers twist shawls. We eye with suspicion our carriage companions. Do they have it too? In the blood? As the tram clears the crest of the hill, that first glimpse, bigger, much bigger than ever imagined, grand, like a palace of madness, a giant brick wasp's nest, humming with chaos, asylum. Even the word makes me shudder. Many of the patients were preoccupied with the idea of some injustice done to them or something that had befallen them. Often it's revolved around an inheritance lost or a property that they've been swindled out of. This came up time and time again in my research. The next poem revolves around the theme, and my esteemed co-reader tells me it is written in a contrapuntal form. It basically means that it can be read in a variety of ways. It can be read as two separate poems in two columns. It can be read as one poem. It can be read from left to right. And I think for the purposes of today, I will read it from left to right. The idea being there is both fluidity and disorder in it. What place is this? Oh, that I was where I would be, then would I be where I am not. But where I am, why, there I must be, and where I would be, I cannot. What place is this? I pace the room, speak with various items of furniture concerning my inheritance. A fortune will come to me once I have the will. I must climb up this chimney, for a copy is hidden there. What place is this? A house built without walls? I was mistaken. There is no furniture, no chimney. For the next poem, I stepped briefly away from Staffordshire and into my own backyard, quite literally. I live in North London, in a house that was built in the grounds of what was once Colney Hatch Mental Asylum. Kind of see how I ended up writing the poems that I write. Colney Hatch was a sprawling Victorian building. It housed up to 2,500 patients at its height and featured, at the time, the longest corridor in Britain. Useless fact. To solve the problem of overcrowding, wooden dormitory huts were constructed in the grounds at the hospital as a temporary measure, although they lasted for several years. They were used mostly for female patients. They were fitted with metal-framed beds in rows, and a wood-burning stove was added for warmth. At night, the doors were locked. What could possibly go wrong? This harrowing newspaper report inspired the poem. Fire at the asylum. Now I lay me down to sleep, I pray the Lord my soul to keep. A timid prayer, whispered after lights out, mouthed in chorus as they'd once learned. Pious eyes screwed shut, more like schoolgirls than inmates, confined in corridors of beds. One spark, a hungry wind. Row by row, they slept on, unaware. The kindling huts grew hot. Flames took fierce hold. Alarm bells shook awake a flurry of nightgowns, barefoot terror. Afraid of fire, yet more afraid of men who burst in, shouting through the smoke, "Come, quick, this way, escape!" Half dazed, half mad with shock at flame and smoke, some lay down, feigning sleep. Some huddled up to crouch beneath their beds. Was this lunacy or a dream? 51 could not be coaxed to leave. Damp hands clamped over their ears, lips moving in unanswered prayer. And this photo was also reproduced alongside the newspaper report, and it shows the scene the next day. These are just the metal framed beds and just smouldering rubble. These final 5 poems return back to Staffordshire and the archive. The enormous leather-bound journals that I researched in each had a sheet glued inside the front cover. It was a typed document entitled Extract from the Rules of the Commissioners of Lunacy. This is a found poem. The highlighted words make up the poem. In every house, a distant pulse of bruises. I've just realised that's a different poem. I'll read the one on the screen instead. Post-mortem, every lunatic vision shall be kept contained in the curated body. Count any peculiar vascular organs. Tongue the absence of bruises, the phenomena of disorder. A change in disposition displays itself by a morbid failure of memory and has to undergo a course of special mechanical constraint. All accidents and injuries must be the last. The examination room. Upon admission, patient was found to be in frail health and unresponsive to basic questions. Doctor enters the room. His maggot words drop to the floor, ignored. I am listening to him with my teeth. I hover like a blue bottle above this almost corpse as doctor searches for the distant crackle of breath in the foamy bellows, prods the pale tripe of slack belly, pulls back the shuttered lids, peers in. A vacant room. Table scrubbed almost white. Chipped bowl. Piece of spoiled meat. A fly. Grief, aged 23. Alice Maud May on a chair, in a room she is no longer part of, stares as the angels brush past her head. They are holding her baby. Can pass the child angel to angel mid-air with effortless grace. Alice looks on as her baby is cradled. Silver thin ribbons make figures of 8, glide into ether. Stars light up the walls, ears full of music that no one but she can hear. Alice prays angels will reach down to raise her up from this room. This poem takes its title from a poster that I found archived in a box marked simply Asylum Entertainments. Dissolving views in the evening, a tour of the animated asylum commencing at 12. Empty cloud faces stare in the airing courts, pacing out circles, all foggy-eyed, dreamwalkers, dragging their heels. But at night, minds like bird cages open, and dormitories hum with excitement. A chatter of chaffinches, flutter of memories, fretting lost children, the setting on fire of petticoats, spit in the eye of a woman who looks at you askance. The whispering blasphemies, eyes in the walls that are watching you. Plans being hatched to poison the porridge, dispatch you. Take off your clothes, for the devil is sewn in the lining. Your pockets are burning, your head's full of feathers and fishermen hidden beneath beds, quite invisible, waiting with nets to pounce and surprise you. Look out your eyes. You smuggled a bottle of chloroform, cut holes in water, lost hold of your daughter, purchased a ticket to heaven and sought her. I'm so sorry there's no cheery ones. If you're holding out for the laughs. Few and far between. Before I read the last poem, I would just like to thank you all for coming. It's been fabulous to read for you. And with my co-reader, Sue Johns, I'd also like to thank our wonderful tech support, Eugene, in the middle, and Graham, and all the team at Penzance Lit Fest for hosting us and making us feel so very, very welcome. Thank you. This last tiny poem is called The Seamstress's Lament. Had you but paid a thimbleful of heed to what I said, I might not be here, my love, and you might not be dead. Thank you.
Come up and have a chat to them and buy some brilliant poetry books.